It's been almost 10 years since the world was introduced to the bizarre case of Elisa Lam. The Canadian student had been staying at the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles when she was found dead after several days of being missing. A TikToker named Sam, who runs a channel dedicated to covering unsolved mysteries, decided to take on the cold case, which ultimately led to an unexpected outcome that has shocked the whole internet. Having arrived in LA on the 26th, she spent the next few days visiting various tourist hotspots before making her way to San Diego. She was also captured on surveillance footage riding the elevator to the top floor around 3:33 p.m. on January 29th, but was never seen alive again. Her disappearance was baffling, not only because she had no known enemies, but because there were no signs of forced entry into her room, no signs of a struggle, and her phone and wallet were left behind, along with her keys and most of her belongings. Elisa had apparently been staying in the hotel the whole time they were looking for her, but nobody had noticed. That's because her room was on the 14th floor, the same floor as the hotel's water tanks. And on reviewing the footage from the day she disappeared, it became clear what had happened. And if this was a suicide, why had she left everything behind? Not to mention, the water tank was locked from the outside. According to George Gascon, a retired LAPD detective who worked on the case, the lock was pretty hefty and would have required a lot of force to open. This meant that whoever put Elisa in the tank did so with a key, meaning that it was unlikely that she had managed to get inside on her own. Therefore, he likely wasn't a guest of the hotel, which means he could have been a homeless person who snuck in, or even an employee. He pored over the original police reports and conducted his own interviews with people involved in the investigation. Someone had to open the first lock to gain access to the second one. So, if the man in the elevator had opened the second lock, why didn't the security guard check the first one? Then it hit him. He was also linked to a series of other attacks during that time, all of which occurred in the same area as Elisa's death. After nearly 10 years, they finally had their answer. But instead of relief, the revelation brought a wave of terror over the city. The man who killed Elisa Lam was the same man responsible for a string of brutal murders. He was arrested soon after Elisa's body was found and has been behind bars ever since. He was finally charged with her murder in April of 2025, although he pleaded not guilty. But with DNA evidence against him, there was no doubt that he was guilty. And last month, he was sentenced to 26 years to life in prison. But there was still one question that remained. Why did he do it? And when police compared his DNA to the samples taken from her body, they got a match. Not only did he stalk her across the country before killing her, but he kept her backpack, shoes, clothes, and most of her belongings. He also attempted to withdraw money from her bank account and even used her credit card. It's clear he planned the attack and had been following her for some time prior, but his reasons for targeting her will probably never be known. It's likely that the security guard was the one who unlocked the first latch, enabling the man to slip inside and hide from view. This man, whoever he was the key to solving the case. But unfortunately, he had never been identified. His channel has over 3 million subscribers, and he's just getting started. Who knows what he'll uncover next? He even traveled to the Cecil Hotel himself to retrace Elisa's final steps. What he found was shocking. However, when the police checked the employment records, they couldn't find anyone whose face matched the man in the video. So with no new leads, the case was closed, and those involved moved on with their lives, or so they thought. Instead, it looked like someone had snuck her into the tank. But who? Elisa had entered the elevator on the 14th floor and rode it down to the basement where she let herself out. They also checked the guest list to see who had been staying at the hotel around the time of her death. He then reached out to the media to spread awareness of his findings, hoping that someone out there would recognize him, and they did. On the day she disappeared, Elisa was seen entering the elevator alone, or so they thought. After carefully scrubbing through the tape, investigators realized that there was actually another person in the elevator with her, a man they had somehow missed. While the news of the case brought this man's face into the public spotlight once again, his identity remains a mystery to this day. That's because the clip is extremely grainy, and he was wearing a hooded jacket with his face covered by a blue folder. But after questioning all of them, they came up with nothing. Every single person they spoke to claimed to have no idea what could have happened to Elisa. So they turned back to the CCTV footage to see if they missed anything. When the maintenance worker went to check on the tanks, he noticed that the door to one of them was ajar, so he pushed it open to find Elisa's body inside. It was immediately clear that she had drowned. Could this man have slipped something into Elisa's drink before leading her to the water tank? Did he attack her in the elevator and dump her body afterwards? Or was he simply a witness to the crime, having seen what happened but not feeling comfortable enough to speak up? Unfortunately, We may never know. With no leads in the case, it quickly went cold, leaving everyone wondering what could have possibly happened to her. Despite conducting a thorough investigation, the police couldn't come up with any answers. Some believed that she was the victim of a serial killer, while others said she had been trying to take her own life or had accidentally fallen into the tank. Others went as far as to say that she had been the victim of a ritualistic sacrifice, or that she had been abducted by aliens. But, in reality, none of these theories made any sense, and the truth was far more terrifying. There were no signs of foul play, and no one had reported seeing her enter the water tank. All they knew was that she was seen entering the elevator alone and was never seen alive again. It was hard to imagine someone her size being able to lift the heavy metal lid of the tank to climb inside, especially as she would have had to hold her breath while doing so. So with no answers, the police eventually ruled her death a mystery, and her family was left with more questions than answers. For the next 3 days, her family and friends tried calling her, but their calls went straight to voicemail. They became increasingly worried and reported her missing on February, prompting the LAPD to begin searching for her. She then returned to LA a few days later, checking into the Cecil Hotel on January, just 3 days before she vanished without a trace. After spending months poring over evidence, interviewing people involved in the initial investigation, and even visiting the hotel himself, he may have just uncovered what really happened to Elisa Lam. And unlike the many wild theories that have circulated about her death over the years, his findings are far more terrifying than anyone could have ever imagined. So here is the sad update to the Elisa Lam case. And it's worse than we thought. Her body was discovered in one of the hotel's water tanks on the top floor, having apparently drowned in the very building where she had been staying. But with no signs of forced entry, no witnesses, and absolutely no motive for anyone to kill her. With time going on, many people began to forget about the case until it re-emerged online last year. Elisa Lam was a bright, cheerful, 21-year-old student, studying at the University of British Columbia when she decided to embark on a vacation to California in January 2013. Upon checking in, Elisa was given a key card to access the rooms on the upper floors of the hotel, which all featured individual climate controls, a feature that would become quite important as the investigation went on. But despite launching a huge manhunt, police were unable to find any sign of Elisa. On February, however, security footage from the Cecil Hotel revealed something truly disturbing. The question now was, how did she get in? It wasn't long before wild theories about her death began circulating online. For starters, if this was a murder, why was there no evidence of a struggle? In the weeks following her death, police interviewed every staff member at the Cecil Hotel, including the front desk clerk. As it turns out, they did. Retired LAPD Detective Steve Coughlin told Inside Edition that whoever this man was, he had something to do with Elisa's death. He just can't be sure what that was. As for the man himself, he was never seen leaving the elevator. After watching the news coverage of the case, TikToker Sam decided to take on the cold case, determined to uncover what really happened to Elisa. First off, the police had completely overlooked the fact that there were 2 separate locks on the water tank. So Sam took matters into his own hands. Through his own sleuthing, he was able to track down the name of the man in the elevator, Joseph James. As it turned out, Joseph James D'Angelo is a 60s serial killer who has already been sentenced to multiple life sentences for the murders of 5 women in California during the late 70s and early 80s. It was finally over. While Joseph's motives for killing the other women remain unclear, he appears to have formed a particular obsession with Elisa. Thankfully, Joseph will never get the chance to harm anyone ever again. As for Sam, he might just have solved one of America's most mysterious cold cases, but he hasn't slowed down yet. Now, watch Most Insane Crimes That Were Never Caught on Camera, or check out Most Evil Serial Killers in the USA.